Welcome to the inaugural edition of the TechRadar Podcast. I'm Lance Ulanoff, and I'm here with the team. I'm here with Toddy, Matt Evans, Josie Watson, and Tom the Tech Chap.
That's me.
You probably know Tom the Tech Chap. You don't know who I am, but that doesn't matter. What I want to talk about is what's happening in tech, what actually matters, because, and I guess I feel like the thing that matters the most right now in the world of consumer tech is Apple's Vision Pro, which we have right here.
Yeah. Except you can't buy it outside of the US.
That is true. I literally traveled to the UK with this guy in my backpack, not in the bag that Apple
Can I
determined.
show? This is what. This is the unofficial.
If you're listening and you're not watching, that's a Ziploc bag. I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah.
I don't even think it's not even an on-brand one. It's just a cheapo Ziploc bag. But in any case, I traveled with it here, so I've got a US Apple ID, so I'm able to use the whole thing. But
I should explain the reason you brought that case is because Apple's one is so massive.
Yes.
And it takes up half your backpack on a plane.
It also looks like a pillow, like fully looks like a
NASA
pillow.
Yeah, I really thought it looked like something you carry onto like the space shuttle or some spaceship. It had that look, and look, protects it really, really well, but it's also too big for my backpack and too big for my luggage.
And it's $200. Yeah.
That's true. You don't. Oh yeah, we should mention that this device that's sitting right here is $3,499 to start. All right, and raise your hands if you've tried it out yet. So, Tech Chap and I have both tried it out.
I bought one. I'm a mug who bought one and shipped it over.
So you're kind of more of an OG than I am because this is Apple's, and in April I'm going to hand it back to them.
Oh, that makes sense.
This is a review unit and not owned by me. I would have some very long conversations with my wife before I would actually buy it. It's a mixed reality, spatial computing headset.
Apple's very clear about that terminology as well,
Not
right?
VR.
It's not VR, it's not AR, it's spatial computing.
To be totally fair, I was talking to a couple of people last night about my review, which is a tome. It's one of the longest things I've ever written because Apple was introducing a new computing platform. There were so many different pieces to talk about, and I feel like, I don't know how the Tech Chap over here feels about this, but I felt like it kind of lived up to the promise a little bit because I really was doing all of these different things, including working with my MacBook.
It's magical for the first 3 days, and now I've had it for a couple of weeks now, and then it just sits on my desk, and it looks very nice on my desk, but there's nothing in my mind that it does that I wouldn't just do elsewhere. And my main reason for buying it is I thought, well, I'll use it I use it with my Mac.
Right.
On planes, on trains, I can have my screen off or down a little bit, and I like that. I use X-Real glasses sometimes for that reason. But the problem is on the train, I use this. The little bit of motion from the train gave me some motion blur in my Google Docs, and it made me feel sick. It was the first time it made me feel sick. Magical device, but there's just no killer use for it yet for me.
I've heard that from other people that they don't see a killer app. That they used it like crazy in the beginning. I definitely did, but I was also reviewing it, so it was kind of like I literally had to. But then I can do what I do without it, so I don't automatically pick it up. And also, as much as it's a mixed reality headset, you've got pass-through, you can feel a little closed off. So in my house, if my wife is around and I'm just like wearing this thing. Exactly. What, have you met my wife? That's literally the tone of voice. But the only part you didn't do is get up and walk out of the room.
I left it on my bed because I've tried to watch a movie with it, and then she came in and it was on the bed, and she said, "What have you been watching?" I was like, The Creator on Disney Plus.
I watched Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness in 3D, and honestly, it was great.
Yeah, because I think Al, who usually writes about TVs and the like, he actually wrote a piece specifically about enjoying 3D content on this.
The Avatar, wasn't it?
The Avatar.
Yes, that's the one they keep. That's the first thing they showed that Apple showed me. Disney Plus is on here, and they actually have a pretty decent library of 3D content, and this headset has like 4K per eye. It's got a very high resolution, and the experience, especially if you close yourself off, there's a digital dial on the top, digital crown. You dial it so you can be completely closed off. You have an environment that you can be in, and I watched this movie in a virtual movie theater. The sound and everything. I had my AirPods Pros in. It was really transformative. definitely enjoyed that. But I would not want to do that sitting next to a family member. That would just be weird. And it would be rude, I would assume, right? Do you think it was
They
rude?
also have their $3,500 Vision Pro one as well. You've seen other movies like you do on the plane where you press play at the same time. Like,
You know,
a few hoops.
it's worth Apple's pitch here, by the way, because we mentioned the price, and Apple's pitch is not just for consumers. They are really pressing the idea of the use of this in enterprise.
What's what HoloLens and Microsoft tried to do until it stopped.
Yeah, they.
Too, which also doesn't really go anywhere.
I think the US Army were going to buy it and spend hundreds of millions on it, but pulled out.
Yeah, it's. I will say, having tried both, I mean, this is a better experience than the HoloLens. It's more. It's the technology is it's absolutely more refined, and so we keep seeing stories about it being used in a hospital room.
Yeah.
You know, a nurse was wearing it to assist. Yeah, I don't know exactly what she was doing. You know, here's the thing: the Vision Pro is not just about sort of mixed reality. It has a sense of space. So theoretically, and I don't know how this was working, but theoretically you could set it up so if it could see the person lying there, it could give an overlay that was connected to it that would help like with the surgery.
In theory, yes.
Yes.
And I love that, the idea of augmented reality, but there is no augmented reality. The only thing is the connect button above your laptop. I put this on and did a little workout. I know you wouldn't.
I was going to say, so he's just, just by the way.
This is a quick half marathon. But I thought, I could watch a YouTube video of a fitness video I was watching, but in my ideal Minority Report world, I'd have my BPM, I'd have a tracker, I'd have some blood glucose, I'd have augmented health tracking, fitness tracking there, but there's nothing like that at the moment. Everything's just a screen.
You'd also have something comfortable and light enough to be able to actually exercise.
Also that, more importantly that.
That's a really, really good point. I was asked yesterday what's sort of the tipping point for this, and I said, obviously the price is a big problem, a major problem, and as much as I've worn this for like 2 hours, right? Yeah. But it's not like I'd say, oh, it's completely comfortable.
No, you're like, oh.
Yeah, in fact, I don't know if you guys noticed, and maybe you noticed this because you've worn it, I keep this band, the single strap, in and never use it.
Oh, I use that all the time. I never actually use that one.
Well, I guess we should do a little phrenology here and see our head shapes, because apparently you have a much more normal head than me.
Oh, I have a very large head.
Yeah, I can't, well, you got hair too, which helps, but I cannot use this. It just puts too much pressure on my face. I've tried, doesn't work. So I have to use the dual strap. Apple at least doesn't make you pay for this second strap. By the way, the original plan was they were going to charge you for it. When I sat with Apple the very first time, they used this, but they told me, and it wasn't quite this design, they told me that this was the optional dual strap.
Well, that's the case with the Quest from Meta. You have to pay extra for the double strap.
Yeah, and you still need it. So it is a big limiting factor. I know I asked earlier who had tried this, but one of the things we are absolutely going to do in this little first podcast is have someone try Vision Pro for the first time, someone who has never tried it before. And I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna do a little circle with my eyes closed, and wherever my finger stops, I believe it just.
It was totally
yes,
random.
yeah, that was complete, but wasn't planned. We have not thought about any of this, so it's pretty straightforward. But I do have to do a couple of things to set up, because one, inside of there, so you see I wear glasses. And I've worn them forever. And so I have custom lenses in there that you can pay $149, Zeiss lenses, the inserts, so they're prescription lens.
As well, right? It's like a reading glasses one for like
There is
yes,
if you just need reading lenses. Now, if you wear contacts, no problem.
Great.
But for you, Matt, for example, you would not be able to put this on. There's no adjustment to make the lenses clear.
So I would have to, if I didn't want to pay $149, I would have to go and get my contact lenses. I would have to put them in every time I wanted to use the Vision Pro.
That is absolutely right. Well, it seems like Matt's out.
Yeah.
So
Save yourself a lot of money, man.
So basically, what I have to do is I have to go and I have to put it on, and I have to put it into guest mode. I also want to try and get the screen to show up on my laptop, because then what that does is we can see what you're seeing. Mm-hmm. Now, Josie's going to be experiencing the Vision Pro for the first time. So the Vision Pro tracks your face, it tracks your mouth, it tracks your hands. And it's really important for it to track your hands, because everything that works in Vision Pro is through gaze and gesture. There are no controllers. What's happening now?
It's look at the dot and tap your fingers together.
So you don't even have to reach for the dot. Keep your hand in your lap.
Oh.
And just tap your finger as you see. So look at the dots, tap them. You will do this like 3 times.
And it gets very bright on the third one.
The one thing I will say is it's a little reliant on you knowing exactly what the gesture looks like for the setup. Like it didn't say specifically like pinch and then release.
Yeah, well, that's really because it's a guest mode. It would walk you through all of these things. But with guest mode, it's kind of like they know that you're but letting someone use it.
So
you
if you're the main user, how long is set up longer and more in depth?
You can set up your persona.
Yes.
Oh yes, all of that.
And all that.
Yeah, one of the things that you may be able to see as Josie's using this, eventually you may be able to see her eyes.
Oh yeah.
But you're not really seeing her eyes. So what happens is when you have the Vision Pro, you first scan your face because it makes a persona, which you can use in FaceTime, and it also does this video of your eyes. And basically it's like a 3D, it's like a video of your eyes, a feed, but it's also a 3D map. So like the persona is totally a 3D map and not really you. But it looks like you because it took your picture and wrapped it around this 3D. So what are you seeing now?
Now it says too far from displays.
So you'd have to tighten it. All right, so the fact that we were able to get her to this point
That's
is
impressive,
a
actually, from your
miracle.
point. Yes, that's
That is a miracle.
For an absolute first timer as well, where this is like very jarring.
One of the things that you notice is that Josie is looking through. She's not trapped in a. She can be. By the way, I'm going to do something right now, so don't worry.
Okay.
So I just immersed her. You can be fully immersed. I'm so sorry I did that.
This is so cool.
So
This looks like Skyrim.
you can, because it's mixed reality, means that you can go from full pass-through to full immersion virtual reality. And so she is now living in an environment. This, I think, believe is Yosemite. And you can look up, you can look to the side.
But also noticing your proximity to her means it's recognized.
Put your hands up.
When I focus on you specifically, you come in. It's not if I glaze over, it's sort of not there.
Josie, put your hands on your lap and look down at your hands right now.
Yes, sir.
Do you see how they're there?
Yes.
Your hands are in the middle of it, but your knees aren't. You don't have knees.
I have no knees.
Right, you just have hands sort of float. Well, your legs are actually showing up better than I thought. I may not have immersed you.
Is it because we're sat down, maybe?
I'm going to take her out of immersion so she can come back. So now you're...
welcome back.
Welcome back. So you can see everything.
Suddenly a lot warmer.
There, what Josie is not accessing or any of the apps.
Yeah, sure.
When you're in guest mode, it's really dependent on the owner to decide what they can see. So they're not just running. Imagine handing someone your laptop and they could go into everything. That's not what you want. Well, you're basically handing them a full-blown computer here. So whatever was open that I said they can look at, And, there's some things like if I want to show her photos, I'd leave my photos there. The one thing that some people say is almost a killer app, which I'm not quite sure, but I think it's close, is spatial photography.
Oh.
So when you take a photo, you can take a photo right now or video.
Yes.
You can take a video
AirDrop
right
it.
now with you don't even have to airdrop it.
Because iCloud.
Right.
Also, yeah.
But your iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max have natively the ability to shoot spatial video because of the positioning of the cameras. Surprise, they set them up as a stereo camera.
It's like
Who
they knew.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they knew. So I've shot a bunch of video like that, and basically the first time, it's much more impactful if you shoot it of people you know and love.
Yeah.
Then it starts to get like emotional, and I don't want to get emotional here, but yeah, but it's really, that's one of the coolest things that is capable here. But it's also, to be fair, stereo photography is not a new thing, right? It's 100 plus
And you have
years
to
old.
watch it back by yourself. And it's just kind of lonely.
Yeah, you can. We're basically mirroring to my laptop, but you can also do this to your television set. So
and that is a nice way of.
Yeah, so
sharing.
again, people, anytime I've used it, because you can, by the way, do this with Meta headsets too. You can cast to another screen. It's just a way of sort of bringing people in, but it's also at some point it isn't as cool. All right, so
Is it the depth? Can I just ask? Is it the depth that makes these so much more impactful than just watching like a flat image in VR or something.
Yeah.
It's proper
yeah.
what 3D should always have been in our minds.
Well, I'll give you an example. I've worked with some of you for 2.5 years, and I only saw you on Zoom.
Yeah, that's true.
And it was quite startling to meet many of you in person for the first time. It literally felt to me like meeting celebrities because you had transformed into three-dimensional people. And that is similar to what happens. You take something that's flat and doesn't have quite that punch, and it takes it to another level.
But then imagine if you'd only met us through the avatars that are generated by this. That would be something else.
I've done those meetings. So just before we wrap up, I want, with this part of our first podcast, Josie, what do you think? Like, what's your first impressions of what you're experiencing here?
I am so surprised by how easily, I was going to sound really silly, but how easily my brain adapted to it. I find VR can be really overwhelming. I get a lot of sensory issues. It's something I've always struggled with. This is not giving me any of that. It's not giving me any sort of like feeling that I'm not in the room as well, which is quite impressive. The feeling of it, for me, is instantly not comfortable. Like, it's not what I would want to wear for a long period of time, more than, maybe half an hour to an hour, personally. But again, that comes down to like my sensory experience, like how I experience the world. I wouldn't necessarily want it. The responsiveness to the gestures, though, that is insane. That feels like you are fully in the future.
And it's happening too because of the eye tracking.
Mm-hmm.
It's the combination of those two things that takes it to, and it's something, by the way, that Meta's tried with its Quest headset and has only gotten so far. It's not nearly as precise as this. At least that's been my experience too. All right, well, you've been a really good subject.
Thank you.
We all agree you look ridiculous.
I feel it. I feel it.
But I'm not sure there's anyone who wears this headset who doesn't look maybe a little ridiculous. All right, so we'll let you get reset and take that off, and then we actually have a lot of other stuff that I need
Well,
to
the big
talk
question
about.
for us here in the UK is when will we be able to buy it? And there's nothing confirmed.
Question. So do you know? You're the tech chap. Tell us.
I just called Tim over at Cupertino, and he said, "Good morning," because they're 8 hours behind.
Nice. I like the impression.
By the way, that was scarily good.
I've had a couple of selfies with him.
I mean, bold to assume that he is actually using a phone to pick up and not his Vision Pro.
All I can tell you is that from this point on, I want like a thing on this desk, like a button where I can have that sound. Good morning, just from it. Yeah. So the Tech Tap's going to be just recording all of these for us.
This is the slow devolution to shock radio that this podcast is going through.
I did grow up on that stuff.
But no, nothing confirmed for the UK yet. But I guess we're hoping it's summer, maybe later on. But we don't know anything yet.
Yeah, I feel like WWDC, which is their development conference, which happens like early June, would be the perfect time for sort of the next big
I mean,
step.
that's where it's first announced, right? The product.
Yes, I remember it so well.
So failing that, if we don't see it in June, it will be September.
I bet it will be a good couple of months after they tell us in June. I bet it could be a Q4 here. But then I don't know. Everyone's going to buy iPhones.
Yeah, but that's it. They don't. Nothing can Bigfoot the iPhone launch. That's too important.
They'll bring the iPhone 16s out. They'll all have the spatial capture on them, the whole range, and then they'll launch the Vision Pro in the UK. That's what will happen.
That's possible.
Heard it here first.
All right, yeah, exactly. Mark that down. All right, let's take this thing off of you.
Alrighty.
The last big tech event, there were a couple of them, but probably the biggest one, especially in the U.S., was CES, which sometimes people call Consumer Electronics Show. Sometimes they call it other things, but we call it CES, and most of us were there. Tech Chap, were you there?
I was there.
How come we didn't see each other? Is that because like we're not supposed to occupy the
Well,
same
I'm a
space
content
at the same
creator, and
time?
you guys are actual proper journalists, so they keep me at the VIP section.
We saw each other at the airport, at least, for like 5 minutes, but that was it.
I am actually a little jealous of you. Actually, more than a little jealous now, I'm realizing, because you always go to VIP. But probably the biggest product, in my mind, the biggest product at CES was one that wasn't even supposed to be there, that most people had no idea was going to be announced. And I guess you had a hands-on with it, the Rabbit, the R1?
Yes.
The only person in this room who got to touch it.
To be fair, I didn't touch it. But
Okay,
I've seen it. So it's
Okay.
essentially it's not a phone, but it's a phone. It's not going to replace your phone. It's a secondary device you might have on you. Super cute. little thing. I think they partner with Teenage Engineering.
Same guys who do nothing, and they've made a few other kind of like music synthesizers and stuff with a very specific aesthetic.
And with some pixely art sort of software. It's kind of like Nothing OS almost on a small gadget, and it's got a little camera, and it basically runs a form of Android, and it's kind of like a terminal to use AI. But there's this.
The irony is, it's like you've asked AI to generate a handheld device, and it's just come up with sort of a screen goes here and a camera goes here.
Well, I found it looked a lot like the Playdate, which was weird for me. Like, it has this sort of gaming.
It does.
It did look,
like
it does look sort of like a little bit of a toy.
Like a Tamagotchi vibe to it.
Yeah, which is absolutely going to bring me in if I'm their core demographic. Like, I love Tamagotchi. I bought a Tamagotchi this year, and I'm proud of that. You remember?
I do think that the core idea is actually not a bad one, which is this idea of sort of letting the AI agent sort of know what apps are on the device, and then kind of you talk to it, and then it does things for you.
I have so many questions. The same way of the Humane AI Pin as well.
Yeah, me too.
There's this idea that AI will just streamline everything. So you're like, whether you're on the Rabbit or the Humane AI, you'll be like, book a flight to Rio de Janeiro. And it's like, yes. And maybe it'll ask you when. But like, I need to pick my seat, put my flight number in it. How many bags am I going? What time? Are the flight options? Is it like this? The process to do what we do every day, and that we want AI to simplify. I can't believe it can. Like, maybe, like, I don't know, get me an Uber from here to there. Sure. Do you want an Uber Black? When would you like it? Are you gonna split the bill? Is it just me? Do you luggage? I don't know.
You have a lot of questions.
I'm a stressful. I'm just.
Yeah, I'm
living this
just. You literally just stressed me out talking about this. But I actually tend to agree that I think that the promises of AI are currently
in this sense of like
they're
automated.
Right. Well, they're trying to present a finished consumer product that offers the ideal of what they want. To me, this is not the Apple model, because Apple tends to deliver a product with a platform like the Vision Pro, and it goes out there and you can use it, and it works.
But it got a lot of buzz.
It sure did.
A lot.
Oh my gosh.
I have a slightly different take on it, which could kind of explain that buzz, which is that we're living in a time where, like, phone fatigue is at a high. I am so sick and tired of my phone. I leave it in another room as much as I can. She says with it right next to her on the couch. But still, I leave it in other rooms. I have so many things set up on my phone to stop me from using apps, to stop me from getting hooked on those little dopamine giving notifications, apps, whatever. And I think the reason people are gravitating towards this is not because it's necessarily an AI thing. It's not necessarily about capability. It's the fact that the interface might give us some respite from what is a inherently addictive and unnatural experience of using our phone all the time.
You know, I know Matt has written about this, and the thing is that the trends that you keep identifying about the moving away from screens on wearables seems connected to this whole.
So this is definitely a thing. This is definitely a phenomenon that we're experiencing, and it's something that, as Josie said, screen time is at an all-time high. I think post-lockdown was a big thing when everybody was just spent 10 months staring at their phones, wishing they were anywhere else. So we're trying to now create these kind of ideal sort of wearables to replace our phones, the idea where we can sort of do all the things that our phones do without looking at screens. And we've seen Vision Pro, we've seen smart glasses that you can talk to, earbuds have integrated the same kind of thing. You mentioned the AI Pin, which we'll come on to later. And it's not quite there yet. Our phones are too good, which is why we keep staring at them.
I definitely think there's something to sort of the passive engagement of smart wearable technology, because phones always ask you to sort of completely engage. They're doing many of the same things these wearables are doing, and now wearables are starting to get smarter and more proactive, so you don't have to engage with them to get them to do the thing, to know about how you're performing or how you're feeling, or if you're having a heart attack or whatever. It's, you know, all of these things. I'm not saying I'm having one, people. I'm just, everybody looked at me like, well, I know CPR. Not that hard.
I play a bit of squash sometimes, and my heart rate, I have a naturally high heart rate. It hits 180 sometimes when I'm like properly going for it.
I believe that. I don't know.
quite high.
I guess that's good.
I'm like, I said to my friend, I'm like, can we try and hit 200 without a heart attack? And anyway.
I think it's the other, the stopping heart is the problem, not the speedy one.
But having that wearable, having in this case the Apple Watch on my wrist is a passive health device. I'm not actively engaging with it, but it's helpful to see afterwards. And as I see an Aura ring on there, I think we're going to talk about the Samsung ring, and this is really your area with wearables. There's so many just enhancements to everyday life that you can get from what you described as the most passive tech that you have on you, whether it's the pin, a watch, a ring. I quite like that.
I still literally can't wait to talk about Humane because it just annoys me. But, we really should mention that CES is the widest array of technology products. It covers so many different categories, and all of us had different experiences. We all saw different things. I know that Josie, I think, and I'm aware of this company, but I know one of the things you saw was something with lights and music, which, by the way, sounds like a disco, but I'm sure it's something more than that.
Yeah, it was the Nanoleaf Orchestrator software. I think that Nanoleaf was showing off some really cool new hardware there, which is super exciting. But I think in the smart light space, there's so much going on right now, and there's not a lot of software that's really giving something different than just that binary experience of light on, light off, light blue, light red, whatever.
Right.
But they've made this desktop-based software which you can feed through different parts of songs and have different lights you have in your room respond to those different parts of the song. So, you might have like a song that's got a really strong bass line, and you have the LED strips around the corner of your room sort of responding to that. So you can literally make.
Do you have to program all this, or does it do it automatically?
It's pretty automatic. So you have to sort of like do a little bit of finagling of like what lights apply to which different parts of a song. You obviously have to put in your the songs you want to listen to, connect it via Spotify, or I think it can also use like media stored on your device as well.
Oh, so like if I had Tech Chap's Tim Cook. Good morning. I could have a certain light connected to that. Okay, good.
We could give it a go. It's this really impressive software, and I think a lot of the smart light software right now relies on built-in microphones to respond to music. So like Nanoleaf, Philips Hue, a lot of these guys already have this potential for making a party a bit more vibey, I guess, using these lights. It's a very technical term, vibey.
And you have to buy the lights, and then you get the software. Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You can't use it with other hardware from other brands, or obviously the dumb lights.
So you have to, because there's a lot of different light brands now, and ones that can be decorative on the wall, and strips. And Govee is one I think that I've used, and so there's a lot of different options. But I know people are really into connecting media to lights. There's a lot of television sets now that sort of put
Philips Hue Sync's good for that.
Yeah, and they kind of like give this whole acoustic light experience.
Nanoleaf actually just did their own one this year as well, which uses a camera versus actually a HDMI, which is what Philips Hue uses. So there's loads of these things out there, but I think software is the big area for growth in smart lighting.
Obviously, what's interesting to me about CES is the range of things, and one of the emerging areas that's been getting bigger and bigger every year is the auto stuff. And I think you and I maybe had the same experience with the BMW.
Yes.
Yes. Did you do the sort of the I think it was X-Real augmented reality?
Yeah, that was fantastic.
So what was it like for you to do that? You didn't explain it because
I did some work with BMW there. So they had a few demos. They had one where you could valet park, or they would be showing off where someone would be driving your car remotely into a space.
That sounds great.
Which would speed up getting in and out of cars, and make it safer and things like that. But the coolest thing was Audi did something called HoloRide, and they've been doing that for years. And I experienced it last year at CES, and I felt sick within 10 minutes. Genuinely, I had an hour session to go around Vegas, and I said, we have to turn around. I appreciate the traffic wasn't very good, but the traffic's never very good. But what BMW is trying to do, and this is a concept for now, it's not going to come, they're not giving it a date on coming to consumers, but they've basically taken a pair of X-Real glasses, which are basically just a chunky pair of sunglasses with 2 micro OLED screens, and you can plug them into anything, and it just outputs like a monitor. Much simpler than this, but also doesn't need a battery because it's connected to a device. They cost like £350. Really, really like the X-Real Air 2 Pros. I use them a lot. But BMW then worked with the software to put coins on the road and poker chips because we're in Vegas, and you could, but also so silly little game things if you're not driving. But if you are driving, they had pedestrian crossings. It could, they all programmed this in, but the idea is it would be natural, or speed signs, directions like chevron directions, like a proper heads-up display, but we're using augmented reality, and it worked really well.
Yeah, it was much better than I expected, because I tend to think like, oh, what a stupid idea, AR inside a car, like why would you want that? But everything they did, they were actually really smart about the things they pre-programmed in. Probably the thing that works least well for me was the little character that popped up. I wasn't sure what showed up, but I didn't know, what am I supposed to do with you? And I didn't understand. Yeah, another button. I'm driving it. Sorry, I'm just picking them up.
You mentioned earlier about trying to use this in a moving vehicle. How was it? How did they handle the tracking? Is that from the car? Or is it from the glasses?
Very complicated, apparently, and it's within millimeter precision from both the glasses, the GPS of the car in 3 dimensions, and then also your head movement. I think there's a lot of hard work behind it.
Yeah, because if you look, like if there was a hazard in front of you, you would see like this hazard sign, so it knew where you were and it was in front of you. But if you look this way, you'd see something else related to that. Yeah. So it understood your head position, the car position. I thought it was pretty cool. I don't know exactly, because not everybody, well, a lot of us wear glasses, but we still don't want to wear something that's a weird, awkward headset, or even anything that's bulky. So until it becomes subtle, but it was kind of impressive. I wanted to kind of switch gears from there, because to me, the biggest trend, and we kind of touched on this a little bit, are wearables, and sort of this sudden explosion of smart rings that's happening, that I blame Matt Evans for. He's writing about it so that people think people are interested, and now we all have to wear rings.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
You may be the reason. So I'm kind of curious what you saw out at CES with the smart ring space, and really what is actually happening here.
Well, I was possibly the only person in this on the sofas that wasn't actually at CES. But Josie, you were at CES and you saw the EV smart ring, which is a smart ring aimed fundamentally at women.
Yes, I think that's it. What's really exciting is like the market seems to be maturing quite quickly in the smart ring space, to a point where like you're seeing products be made for specific uses already. You're seeing products be made with specific technologies targeting specific different demographics. And the EV ring was really a culmination of that, where it's everything from start to finish of this ring is designed considering women's experiences. So the design of the ring itself is slightly open, and it can fluctuate slightly throughout the month because women's bodies naturally fluctuate throughout the month. Not just, bloating and stuff, but our fingers do get bigger and smaller. It has AI-based trend analysis. It has female-based metrics that it's looking at all the time. Period tracking obviously is part of it as well. They've gone really in on security and privacy too, because obviously there's a lot of conversations around female health data and why it's important to keep that private and safeguarded.
And they had to get FDA approval for for any time something's used as sort of a medical tracking or something, that usually have to get FDA. Did they have to? Did EV have to get that?
I'm not entirely sure. I seem to remember reading they did.
I feel like they did, only because I first saw them like a year ago.
Yes.
Right.
And then they came back and they seemed like they were now ready to go to market.
A lot of wearables companies haven't, or if they've applied, they haven't got it, or they often don't bother, because the idea is you can put a little caveat, say this is not intended for medical purposes,
Right.
like almost all smartwatches.
Yeah.
And you can use it as indicative that you might want to go and see a doctor if you see a trend, perhaps.
Yeah.
And it's all very vague, and it's all very fluffy, and it's all designed for like wellness rather than specific medical settings.
Which would track kind of with like some of the wording I saw in the ED thing, where it's like you can do a spot check to check your blood oxygen level. It's not a diagnostic in any experience, it's just you can quickly look at some of the biometrics it's looking at, store those, log those in your app, compare that against your cycle, because this is predominantly, I think, looking at how women's experience changes throughout the course of the month during their menstrual cycle. Another thing that's actually really interesting about what they've done is they've got this activity tracker, but it's not sort of setting you binary goals. It's very much about how you're feeling and like adding a lot of positivity into things like that. And I think that's kind of where smart ring market needs to go, so we're not living in the data too much.
That is where that's definitely where it's heading, because it can't be too focused on fitness workouts in the same way that for example, you've got the Apple Watch Ultra on, I've got the Garmin Epix Pro. You can see, if I go for a run, I can see how fast I'm going. I can see, if I preload a course, if I want to run a certain amount of time that will take me right back to my house, I can do that. I can see it. Smart rings, generally, almost all smart rings, they don't have a screen. So there's not a lot you can do in terms of, if you want to check how you're doing in terms of a workout, you don't want to pick up and look at your phone. Right. So it's, the idea is that they're a smaller form factor. They're kind of more for, some of them have got gyroscopes in, which will track your steps. It's all a bit more basic. But they also have some of the sensors that are in smartwatches. Blood oxygen, heart rate, all that kind of thing.
Motion,
skin
right?
temperature.
They know. I mean, they know all of that stuff. But it does sound a little bit like you're talking about. The perfect combination would be a smart ring and an AR glasses, because then you could be running and see, as long as they were lightweight.
This is it. One of the other smart rings that turned up at CES, and I think they've changed the name recently. I think it's now called the Whisper, which is like a terrible, terrible name. But it's a smart ring with a microphone embedded, and if you're wearing headphones, you raise the microphone to talk, and it interfaces with your AI chatbot.
I feel like this to people. Why are you holding your hand near my yeah, it's like.
So you're like.
So if it's called the Whisper, is the idea you whisper into your face?
Yeah, the idea is you whisper into them.
I do feel like 2024 is becoming the year of the smart ring. Like, everybody's getting into
Samsung's
this.
got one now.
Well, yeah, we're waiting. You've seen.
I've tried it on.
You've tried it?
I tried a version of it. I tried an early.
Behind closed
I was
doors.
was quite lucky to get an early prototype. So I went. We did a round table with Samsung's, I think, vice president of, or VP of, I can't remember the actual thing, but his name's Dr. Onpak, and we did a little round table, and there was a bunch of international journalists, and at the end we did a they ran us through what the smart ring was supposed to do, how it interfaces with the rest of Samsung's wearable stuff, and at the end we got up and we put a version of the smart ring on, and it was kind of a pointless exercise because it wasn't connected to your phone. So you're just kind of putting a piece of plastic on your finger, and to replicate this, I've got smart rings for everybody. Just like
I've actually never worn one apart from
so,
the Eevee one.
I have one actual smart ring, which is an Aura ring.
They send that to you?
Yeah. So the way Aura works in terms of sizing is they send you this smart sizing kit, which is full of little pieces of plastic, which are shaped just like an Aura ring, and then you pick the one you want,
really wanna know.
and then they send you an actual Aura ring. So yeah, everybody take the ring of choice.
Is this wrong?
As long as you
It's
get it
not
off,
right,
fine.
whatever you're doing.
Yeah, I because there's no size in there for me. But this is something I had really wondered about, because I've never had a smart ring, and I was very confused. I said, well, everybody's finger size is different, and I didn't realize that they do in fact have you like a pinky ring would actually not be bad for me.
It's the only tech I don't have on me physically, and I think for sleep tracking, because I don't want to wear a watch when I'm sleeping, but also it's just the ultimate, locks you into that ecosystem. One of the reasons I use a lot of Apple products is because I wear the Apple Watch and I want to see that trending health data over time. So that's just personally helpful for me. And putting a Galaxy Watch on and a Huawei watch and a Garmin is just, that messes that up.
I've slept with, when I was testing, I slept with 2 watches. It was a nightmare. It was literally a nightmare. It was like too much. It was too much. But I've gotten used to sleeping with this guy, which
You do, because that's why I charge it overnight as well.
It's a really fair point. And I do have to think very much about, when am I charging this thing? And sometimes I'll be getting ready to go to bed. I'm like, ready to go. And I see 12% left. I'm like, oh.
Not tonight.
So then, it's really like there's a moment where I can fall asleep quite easily, but I don't want to wait 10 minutes to charge enough to get for the overnight. So then I'm like, I'll just leave it on the
So you'd
stand.
rather have a ring to do your nighttime tracking?
That's what I really want to try. I do want to do a ring.
So that's it. And Samsung have said with their smart ring stuff that if you wear a ring and a watch, the tracking gets more accurate, because the ring tracks 4 different sleep metrics that the watch doesn't. I presume these will turn up in the Watch 7. And that will create a vitality score, which is the equivalent of Aura's readiness score or Fitbit's training readiness score, all that kind of, or Garmin's, or all these kind of things that they're starting to become more similar in that respect, and look at wellness and how ready you are.
You look very nice.
I was going to say what I'd like to do is next time I'd like us all to get our vitality scores and then compare.
No, thank you.
I don't think anyone needs to know how poorly my body is performing.
I want to have the best vitality score, you know.
Fatality score? I don't think you want to have the best fatality score.
No. As the oldest person, as the oldest person here, I definitely can have both. I can have both the highest vitality score and the highest vitality score. I think I can do it. I think I can. I know we're like enjoying this, but I do want us to talk about another big event that happened, and actually this is where you saw Samsung's Galaxy smartwatch, I believe, Galaxy Ring was at Mobile World Congress. Is that correct?
That was right.
So the other big show that happened within the last recent time was Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, if you're saying it correctly, as I am a world traveler. So this is really, Mobile World Congress is about mobile technology, and we saw a lot of interesting stuff there, right? I mean, Toddy, you saw in particular some sort of really cool phones, some cool phone technology.
We've got some phones here on the table that we saw, but yeah, beyond phones, we also saw, you know.
Did you steal these?
No, these are review samples, reviews
known for that.
incoming at the time of recording. Check out TechRadar for the full reviews. But yeah, here we have the Xiaomi 14, and they released the 14 series, so it's the 14 and the 14 Ultra. It's the first time they've brought the Ultra international, including its photography kit, which is like a fun little extra case and camera grip with physical controls. It's pretty slick. And then in the front we have the Honor Magic 6 Pro, which has taken design cues from the luxury watch market, which you can see with the sort of squircle design around the camera there.
Squircle is the word I use.
Did you literally just say, what is Squircle?
Squircle, square and a circle, kind of the baby of those two. The kind of love.
Oh, that's an actual thing?
Well, that's what I call it anyway.
Oh, okay. I love that.
Tech Chap knew.
There's probably a more finessed word.
No,
I
no,
don't
we're sticking
have.
with Squircle.
Honor don't call it that, that's
I
for sure.
believe that's also a Pokemon character.
I mean, it's very close to Squirtle, at the very least.
That's what it is. Yeah. So we saw a bunch of very powerful phones. I think that is always the interesting thing because there's a lot of Chinese companies, especially, who launch really capable devices that can go up against the iPhones, the Pixels, and the Samsungs of the world, but they don't go to key markets like the US.
But they don't have to win, right?
No.
I'm sure we're
their
all
market
aware
share is
that
predominantly like China is.
They can sell China and India. They can make quite a bit of money, right?
Yeah.
They can sell to tens of millions of people, or hundreds of millions of people, really, and without touching the U.S. market. Although it had been for a while that it was always like lower cost phones and so lower function, but that's shifted now.
Sure.
Now people are getting these. I mean, these are really beautiful phones. I've used OnePlus phones before quite a bit, and they do some really cool stuff with photography. I mean, you're waving around a foldable phone, aren't you? Just like, I like how you do that, just like casually. Yeah, I happen to have a phone that folds, and it's thinner, and it's thinner than every other foldable phone out there.
That's not the
Magic V2.
Magic V2.
Honor, yeah, again, Honor. Honor's really pushing the envelop in the foldable market as well.
And that's
so
now
Samsung
international.
Better watch out. Yeah, that's gone international too.
Wait, so who makes which one? Is that from Honor or is that?
As well, so the
Honor?
Magic V2 is the thinnest of these book-style foldables you get. So that's like Samsung's biggest rival in that department. And a thing as well that they have done a few generations now, which is interesting. That I think we've seen from other companies in the past is brand partnerships, and so they've had a Porsche partnership, Porsche, depending on who you ask, partnership, and they've done that for both the Magic 6 series like we have here, so they're regular kind of candy bar flagships, and for the foldables as well.
They had done it with McLaren prior to that, I believe.
OnePlus had a McLaren partnership,
right, that's right.
And I wanted to get your guys' take on, like, do you think there's value in the partnerships that like don't directly like sort of correlate? Because Hasselblad and the cameras on OnePlus kind of make sense. But when it's it's a luxury brand, it's just the mark is what they're paying for effectively.
I hate it so much.
Oh, it's so cynical. Anything that just is just for brand.
Just for the brand.
It's always going to land poorly with me.
I always wanted to say this in a show. It's a no from me, Todd. That does not. I don't think it adds anything. It tends to make products more expensive, needlessly more expensive, and so I guess there's always going to be a class of buyers for whom that'll be the thing that tips them because they're really into brands. You know, they're the people who wear Juicy on their butt. You know, that's.
I mean, that's a certain subset of people who are.
Juicy Couture. It's a thing. Look it up, sir.
I remember when, I think it was the third Dark Knight movie came out, and you could get like a Batman branded Samsung phone.
Okay, I might buy that. I'm not gonna lie, I might buy that.
There are spaces when it makes sense, when there is like a defined aesthetic, or especially if there's like some identity that you can associate with, and it makes sense. I mean, this is going to be like a really rogue offshoot, but The Sims can do this really well, but they can also do it really badly. Sims
Talking about the
Moschino
game.
stuff? Yes, the game. They did a brand collaboration with Moschino. Didn't land super well with people because the clothes were really not that good that they added in. And then they've also done brand collaborations with IKEA. Makes sense because it's a building game, and that carries across to any form of tech. If it makes sense, it'll happen.
Like you said, Toddy, with the camera one.
Yeah, so we've got,
Yes, exactly.
All right, why don't we talk about, because we start talking about things that do and don't make sense. And there's a couple of things that we saw at Mobile World Congress that may or may not make sense. One of them are sort of this transparent laptop that I saw and a few other people saw, and it's from Lenovo. It's called Project Crystal. You'll never buy it because it'll never be sold. But basically, it's very straightforward. It's a micro LED screen, and there's micro LED panel for the keyboard, which can light up as a keyboard or be something else. It's very cool, and there's, you know, it kind of goes along with the trend, and we even saw this at CES of transparent displays. In fact, it uses very much the same technology. LG had a ton of them at CES, and you could literally stand behind them and see through them. In the laptop, the pitch that Lenovo made to me, I was like, why? Why would you have this?
a fair question.
And they were like, well, you know, you're in a meeting and someone wants to see what you're working on. They're behind you and they can see it. I was like, that seems terrible, especially if I'm in.
I heard it's so that digital artists could have a better reference to whatever they're looking at.
Because the demo they had on their stand was literally had like a plant pot, a physical plant pot behind the screen, and then they had a
Yes.
virtual butterfly landing
Yep.
on the plant pot to kind of show.
They had that with
A
fish
use case,
too.
maybe?
Yes, it's a but so augmented reality with it's what you'd call an edge case.
Yeah.
And it's not something that everyone needs. But I think that in my opinion, a lot of these companies show these concepts to generate excitement
It's a
and
brand
interest.
exercise.
Yeah,
branding
it's around the
exercise.
brand, and it's not really something that's going to ever be sold. Speaking of which, Toddy, you put on
Yes, the ADC.
what? Please explain it, because that's another example of why should this exist.
Well, I think Motorola's now just struck a trend because obviously Motorola and Lenovo are on the same booth at the show. So as well as the Crystal laptop, they also had the adaptive display concept. Last year they showed off what was kind of colloquially known as the Rizar OZR, but which was they've basically taken the folding display from the Razer line and they've wrapped it in various different form factors. So last year it rolled around the body of a phone that was a bit shorter, which is kind of cool. This year it's instead of a foldable, it's a bendable. So instead of having a single hinge point, you have a network of hinge points that they described as like the vertebrae in your spine, and it meant that you could bend it into lots of different kind of angles and positions, from a tabletop thing where you could play Connect 4 with a friend, or you could literally push it and wrap it around your wrist, and it had a magnetic strap that it sort of latched onto, and it could act as a sort of faux smartwatch. Now, it definitely was a rough concept to show that off, but I got what they were going for there. Yeah, it's a very interesting idea, but I don't know where they think it should go. But they've clearly been interested in it for a while, because they showed something off as far back as, I think it's Lenovo Tech World 2016. You can see it on YouTube, and it was effectively the same thing, just a not as elegant version of it.
Bendable displays have been around, flexible displays have been around for years, and it's constantly an innovation in search of a product.
Yeah.
And LG for years would show me the TV that would roll up out of a box. Sure. Has never become a product.
And last year we had the bendable monitors that could go from straight ultra wide to curved ultra wide. And I think that no, I don't think we're going to see that again.
No.
I mean, it to me, it feels like it kind of feeds back into the conversation we were having earlier about displays in general, right, and where they're going. Some of this feels a bit like a fever pitch to make displays still feel exciting, but we're surrounded by them at
My
all
favorite
times.
one was from CES, from LG, who had the M series, the wireless TV. So it transmits from a box.
Like a super low latency local.
Super low latency, very impressive TV. The TVs, I love the TVs. But you still have a power cord.
Wait,
Hang on.
they lied.
It's not wireless.
So, but
wireless data transmits, but not
you
power.
could certainly get a battery attached to that of some sort, right?
Can we just get transparent wires? Like, I'd be more excited
Well,
by
Samsung
transparent
did that.
wires.
They had
than screens.
the Samsung TVs did that. They had a translucent One Connect fiber almost wire.
That's right. I've seen
Which
that.
was very,
yes.
very thin and nice.
A few years ago, Xiaomi had a wireless power unit as a tech demo that was like this big, and the idea was that it could literally beam wireless power to your phone in the room, but that was a bit scary.
So inefficient.
So inefficient, yeah. I think the takeaway from that concept that could actually have genuine real world benefit was the battery tech.
Yes,
being
I
able
was
to
just about to say
segment
that.
batteries through, like, we've already seen with foldables they usually have 2 batteries, one in each half of a foldable, but figuring out a way to do it across multiple smaller segments mean you could create products that maybe don't move in the same way, but don't have to be slabs, can more readily fit around things, and you can have a much slimmer profile overall.
That's a great point. Being able to put a battery in a laptop hinge and increasing
or like
space.
body panels in a car with batteries in. That could be pretty cool, and you should have a much lighter chassis or something.
There's issues with car crashes.
Well, for sure, but like,
But not a terrible idea. Just, so I kind of, because this connects to CES, but it connects to sort of other things that I had wanted to talk about, which relates to some stuff that we saw at CES that related, at Mobile World Congress, I should say, that relates to AIs. And I read this story. I remember this story you wrote about the AI fitness coach. And I am actually very interested in that because it seems like a good use case, if it's not annoying.
It was an interesting use case. Yeah, I mean, it was at the Intel booth, and Intel were working on some kind of partnership with the technology is called 3DAT, which is 3D athlete tracking, and the way they do it is using a camera. They're able to get statistics that you might only normally get from sensors, with a smartwatch, for example. So they can tell you, how dynamic your movement is, how powerful your jump is, all that sort of thing.
Were you moving at the time?
Yeah, they had us jogging on the spot, doing star jumps, all that kind of thing, like
would do
doing
that
one
in
single
fitness
broad jump. Yeah. And they were able to calculate they showed me numbers. How the calculations were up for debate, but they showed me numbers on the screen on this smart mirror, which was so the image of me was then replaced with a 3D model, which was then said, that you were 83% powerful out of 100%, or you were 29%. Sort of your cognitive reflex was X amount after doing a ball touch exercise on the smart mirror. And the use case that they were putting forward was their first app. It's called AI Scout, and it's designed for football or soccer coaches to identify promising talent and send them to scouts.
Oh, wow.
So you can film yourself, send this video to your coach, and the coach can put it into this program. It can determine dynamics and go, oh, this is X% more powerful than any of the other people I've seen that day. I'm going to forward them to,
They're filming themselves to show they can do things, and now athletes can film themselves but have real analytics. See, that actually makes more sense to me than Humane AI. So I have.
You've got a real issue with this.
I
haven't
do
you?
have a real issue of it. I kind of want to go. I actually want to go around before we'll talk about it a little bit, but I want to just get like. I almost want to get a yay or nay from each person about how they feel about Humane AI, because I feel like this is a polarizing thing. So
explain what it is.
Yes. So Humane AI is a wearable pin. It's small enough to fit in your lapel. It projects information onto your palm that you can interact with and engage with through gestures. And I believe that there is some AI element built into it. I am, for many reasons that I won't go into immediately, I'm kind of a nay. And I'm curious where Chap sits.
I think it's ridiculous. And I think it's just going to be a showy offy thing for rich people. And then no one will actually use it. But I like to be proved wrong. I'm a nay.
Toddy?
I think I would. I'd like to be proved wrong angle. I want it. It seems so outlandishly sort of Star Trek-like in that sort of fantasy tech that we've actually tried to make real. That maybe it could go somewhere. But as it stands, nay right now.
Matt?
I mean, yeah,
He breaks all the rules.
can't help it. So I saw it on the floor with MWC, and I had a chat with some of the people at Humane, and I saw a live demo, and the way it worked, or the way it was presented, was actually quite impressive. As Tom said previously, there are problems with the idea that it can streamline everything, because as we know with OpenAI, it's got a lot of flaws and it's not quite
And it
there
can be
yet.
confidently wrong, which is the scary part.
Confidently incorrect, which is the worst kind of incorrect. The laser thing on your hand, the laser display, when it shows up, if you haven't seen it already, it is a small plastic square with a magnetic battery attached which clips onto your clothes. And you tap the microphone and then you ask it your question, and then it will relay out of the speaker the answer to your question. And you've also got some measure of control by holding your hand open, and it projects a laser display with a couple of options. And you select your options by tweaking certain fingers. And so you can go into settings or you can go into that sort of thing. And it was quite an impressive display. So I think it's one of those things like the Vision Pro, or not quite like the Vision Pro, but along those lines. There is an aspect to it I can definitely see having a big use case. It still needs to be refined.
Maybe for accessibility uses, for people who can't use a phone for whatever reason.
Well, going back to our point earlier about people wanting to have less screen time with their product, their devices anyway, not as an AI product, but just as an alternative to a smartphone. 'Cause,
Yeah.
you know, when you get it in the US right now, it comes with a plan, a mobile plan.
Yeah.
I think with T-Mobile or someone. So, like, I could totally see it as if people want a phone alternative. So it's not really, you're not getting it for the AI functionality, you're getting it for the form factor.
There is also a privacy concern because it has a camera right there and it has a truss light, so the camera, only when the truss light LED is on is the camera recording and sort of drinking in information. I imagine it wouldn't take a lot for, if you're tapping it to ask a question and the truss light is on, someone's like, why are you recording? And these come with smart glasses and everything else. The same considerations apply.
Yeah.
Josie, I'm just curious.
It's pretty much the same as Matt, to be honest. It's the thing about, I love the gimmick of it. In terms of an idea, I think it's fun. I think there are people who it is for. Would I use it or have any interest? No, I am much more keen on phasing out some of the unnecessary tech.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I feel like it's always a question of how far along we are in the AI space. If AI gets more powerful, as it is, and it's kind of growing exponentially, these devices will be 10 times better. Like, they're really dependent on the quality of the AI, the quality of its ability to understand your intention and to carry it out and not be confidently wrong.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, we're really not there. Sometimes we'll feel like we've gone so far, but we actually aren't as far along as we think we are. And honestly, for me, the stuff that integrates with the hardware we already have is the most promising thing. The stuff that we can potentially, like the fact that I can use Microsoft Copilot on my phone right now and generate images, ask it questions, and there's nothing I have to learn. There's no extra hardware I have to buy. Tom makes a very important point that it is this sort of this push and pull, that we've got this AI development, but the hardware is sort of like people are just building these really cool looking things, but they're not necessarily connected. It's a good time when you're talking about AI, which is to me still partially the future, to talk about the outlook, right? There's two events that I want to talk about really briefly. Obviously, WWDC from Apple, and there'll be Samsung's event in the summer. August, June. So one thing I started to think about, obviously Apple's going to do something crazy with AI, but since Samsung is doing yet another round of its foldable phones in the summer, right? We expect the Fold.
So it'll be Z Fold 6 and Z Flip 6, but there are talks of variations on the Fold, both either a cheaper one like an FE or a more premium one called the Ultra. There's kind of conflicting.
Isn't it crazy that Samsung is so far along in this journey and Apple's nowhere? Like, I keep wondering.
Yeah, but I was just speaking to my friend yesterday. He loves his Flip. He's got a Flip 5, and he's like, it's just. He says he just wants to switch to an iPhone. He's losing the will to live with it for various reasons. Right. Battery, camera's not quite as good.
I haven't used a non-Apple iPhone in about 16 years.
A non-Apple phone.
A non-Apple phone, sorry, yeah. A non-Apple iPhone. Well, that would be very impressive if I had. I haven't used a non-Apple phone in about, 16 years. Yeah. And they have completely trapped me in their ecosystem. But I think it would be, this is what is tempting me away, is the foldables. I'm dying for a foldable.
The Flips especially, I think, because they're reasonably affordable. You can get that or an S24 Plus for about the same price. Yeah. And I might get the Flip between those.
This is a pretty cool phone, but Apple is nowhere. They may or may not have a plan. And I mean, this is two areas where Apple really needs to get going. They need to get going in generative AI, and they need to get going in foldables. And just in my humble opinion on the generative AI side, I have written, I do not believe they're going to use Gemini because they want to do their own thing. They certainly want to control it in some way. Maybe
But they
they'll-
used Intel processors for a long time until they made their
until
own
they
thing.
made their own. And the reality is the way they've made their own is based on the ARM foundation. So they could do something like that where they push down whatever sort of model it is from someone else. So you're not really thinking, like, they won't have branding of Gemini. No way. But they'll have some model in there that they're comfortable with, that they can build on to make it bespoke for them, because that is, of course, Apple's way. And I feel like we've come a long way. This to me was a pretty exciting, potentially lengthy podcast.
I agree. But a lot of people tell me, like, oh, all the phones are the same every year, and they are to some extent. But also, people upgrade every 2 or 3 years, so it's more significant. I think AI, what we've seen with GenFill in Photoshop, on-device, Sora, ChatGPT, just there's so many crazy things that didn't exist 18 months ago for the consumers. And while it's so easy to say, well, tech's boring now, it's all this just same thing after another, I don't think it is at all. We've got so many fantastic cameras, Vision Pros, Rabbits, Humanes, flippable phones. We've got smart rings. Like, it's so enjoyable to sit here and talk with you guys about such a variety of stuff.
Yeah.
It really is. This does feel like a really pretty special time in the space.
It is a scary time as well, you know, if you're on Facebook at all, which I'm not anymore, but the amount of pages that are just posting
AI
AI
rubbish,
content. I
yeah.
saw one the other day that was like a group of women in the 60s in Paris, and several of them had several too many fingers, no shadows. And the comments were insane to me, because people were arguing over whether or not it's AI, for one thing, arguing over whether or not it matters if it's AI, and arguing that they didn't want it to be AI because the ladies looked really nice, which was fabulous in the comments. And it's things like this that make me think that, as exciting of a time it is, it's so important to be talking about the consumer boundaries, the consumer guidelines, and how we communicate to people what it actually should be used for, because we're going to get so tired of these AI generated images and videos if we...
And it's dangerous in an election year for the UK, US. That's going to be used for bad things.
Yeah, it's
Bad things.
Bad things.
But as usual, the technology is racing ahead of any kind of regulation, any kind of control.
The drone market, when it was completely unregulated and the FAA didn't know what to do, and people were just flying drones all over the shop. And now with the same with AI, there's companies making and trying things before anyone tells them you can't do that. So that's why we're seeing this sort of wild west of, software, but as well as, Humane and Rabbit.
Well, we're also seeing it at the time of writing with TikTok in the at time of writing, time of recording.
Yeah.
You can tell, one too much time at the laptop. But at the time of recording, we're seeing it with TikTok in the US.
Yeah. We don't. No one knows what's going to happen there, and no one knows what's going to happen with this podcast. This could be the beginning of a very beautiful relationship. If it's not, it's been so wonderful being with all of you, and this has been honestly a really great inaugural episode. And if you like it, make sure to subscribe so you can hear all the upcoming episodes.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for coming along, Tom.
Thanks, everybody.
And thanks everyone else.
Thank you. Thank you.